Baik 2 tahun sejak pandemik melanda dunia, banyak perniagaan terpaksa gulung tikar dan ramai yang hilang punca rezeki. Namun ramai juga yang bertemu dengan sumber rezeki baru yang ada kalanya jauh berbeza dengan kepakaran yang mereka miliki. Antaranya, tukang masak di rumah yang mendapat permintaan tinggi orang ramai dan juga menyedari potensi besar ini, Li Yantan mewujudkan platform Hawkr iaitu untuk membuka peluang kepada tukang masak di rumah, meluaskan capaian pelanggan mereka. Bagi bincang berlanjut, saya bersama dengan pengasasnya iaitu Li Yantan. Lian, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Lian, first of all, share with us when and how do you came about the idea of Hawkr and the journey to take the first step?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Wow, that's a very interesting question because I always feel like this is a very big and impactful question for me. So the journey of Hawkr basically started in a very challenging environment, which I graduated in the middle of the pandemic. I graduated in 2020 in the US, and that was basically when I also lost my job offer that I secured after my internship in the US, because it was my dream to work in the US. But immediately once I lost my job offer, I knew I had to go searching for one. But I was only met with so many emails telling me that, hey, I can only, sorry, my company only takes in Americans. I cannot take in international students like yourself. So really sorry about that. I had no choice. What I did was I actually packed my bags, booked a one-way flight ticket to the Silicon Valley, booked an Airbnb there, and I just told myself, you know what, I'm just going to try to apply to more jobs. I'm going to apply to a master's program and see what I get. But during my time there, I had a lot of support from my friends and family. So just talking to them, I realized a lot of them started telling me things like, oh my God, things are getting so expensive in the US. There's nothing to eat here. Every meal, I don't know where to get my next meal from. And that got me to think, the cost of living is so high in the US, and there must be something wrong with the cost of being able to operate a business in the US, which is very, very expensive and the barriers are very, very high. So why isn't there a culture of people selling homemade food like we do here in Malaysia, which is so common for us to find home cooks and home bakers putting up their foods online, on Facebook or on Instagram or even just on WhatsApp, and just selling the food to their local communities. And why didn't we have that in the US? So I started something like that in the US. I just started selling to friends in the US. And once I started selling to friends, they told their friends, and it became it became more and more serious. So it basically gave me the signal that said, you know what, this could potentially be a business. At that time, I still didn't really think it was going to turn into a serious business. But what I did was I created a very simple Google form. As a Malaysian, as so many Malaysians, when we go abroad, we love talking about our food. We love boasting about how good our food is. I put two very simple dishes on the Google form. I sold Hainan chicken rice and I sold mee goreng on a Google form. I put it on Reddit, and I got a bunch of Americans to maybe put orders in. In the first week itself, we got about 20 to 25 orders, so that was very interesting. And that basically solidified this idea that this could turn into a business. So that was when I started becoming serious in the US. Unfortunately, a month later, a very kind customer told me that, hey, did you know what you're doing is actually illegal? You're not allowed to sell homemade food in the US. So I was shocked, because we live in a very different world here in Malaysia, where it's so common to share homemade food with people, your local communities. So I was pretty sad by that, but that basically made me, it was a 180-degree flip, basically. So after that, I had no choice but to, maybe bring back the business here. But even then, I wasn't sure yet. I'm born and raised in Malaysia, but I was quite cautious about the Malaysian market, because I didn't want to think as like, oh, I know it, just because I'm Malaysian, I know everything about the Malaysian market here. So I spent about a month. This was around October 2020. I spent around a month talking to just home cooks, people in the F&B industry, stay-at-home moms, people who've owned restaurants in the past before, but had to close their restaurant because of COVID and because of the ongoing MCO.
Yeah.
So I spoke to these people, just very casual conversation, nothing. I wasn't really trying to sell them on anything yet. I just wanted to get to know them. I just wanted to get to know what the problems, what kind of problems they were facing. So that gave me a better footing on how to launch the business in the US, because it's a very different market. So a huge pivot had to be done. So what I did was I put up another Google form for signups, for people to sign up as home cooks. Here, I put up a Facebook ad, and in 1 week, alone, we got over 50 signups, interest forms for people to be home cooks and home bakers. So that was very interesting, and that was how we got our first 15 home cooks in Malaysia, and that was around maybe November. And that was when I decided, yes, Malaysia is the market that I should be pursuing, and I want to go home.
Yeah.
So that was when I made up my mind, what, I'm going to settle back in Malaysia, and that was probably the best decision I've made during the pandemic.
Yeah, starting off with 15 merchants on the platform, now Hawkr has expanded its way all the way to Penang. What's the biggest challenge maybe in running a food delivery business, especially in Indonesia?
So many, but I'd say the biggest challenge is, okay, all food delivery businesses have three sides: the buyers, the sellers, and then you have the fleet of riders. And the biggest challenge, I would say, is the fact that these three sides all have different motivations. As a buyer, you want more choices, you want lower prices, you want more interesting things to see on a marketplace itself. You don't want to have to go to click on other links or other websites to just go and look for that one food that you really want. But as a seller, a lot of our merchants tell us that, like, hey, I don't want so much competition on this. When I go onto like other platforms, if I join other platforms, there's like a lot of competition, and I hope your platform doesn't grow too big, because they think that more sellers mean a lot more competition, and it's very difficult to compete, on prices, on how unique you are, what your unique selling point is, the quality of the food, and so on and so forth. And then you have the group of riders who also are looking for different things. Currently, we don't have our own fleet of riders, but we have partnered with another delivery company to do our deliveries for us. But then again, managing as a platform that's managing all three sides is very challenging when you have to try to meet the different expectations and different demands that you can only satisfy maybe two at a time. And even then, that's very, very lucky. So most of the time, you're struggling to make everyone happy. And that, I would say, is the biggest challenge so far.
I just want to ask, how do you ensure the quality of your services, given that you are dealing with home-cooked food and also merchants?
Excellent question. Okay, so right off the bat, we require our home cooks to first take a typhoid vaccine. It has to be updated. They have to send us a certificate of their typhoid vaccine. The second thing we do is we actually have partnered with a few food handling certificates around Klang Valley. We're still looking for some in Penang. And what we do is we highly encourage our home cooks to go through that training process, especially if they have no experience in the F&B industry. We have about 100 plus home cooks and home bakers on our platform so far, both Penang and KL, and about 40% of them don't have any experience before joining Hawkr, don't have any professional experience. So, they're just stay-at-home parents, they just like to cook, and it was something that they picked up during the pandemic, and they would like to turn it into a full-time, long-term endeavor. The remaining 60%, however, they're very interesting. They're a very interesting mix. So they either had experience working maybe just as a waiter in a restaurant, and now they tell themselves, like, I worked as a waiter in a restaurant. I know the ins and outs of the F&B business because I work there every day. So now let me take it into my own hands and turn it into my own business. The other group that we also see is previous restaurant owners who no longer want to operate in a restaurant because, the pandemic has severely impacted so many restaurants and so many physical businesses in general that this group feels the need to pivot to stay afloat and to continue to brand at home, where it's a lot cheaper and a lot more convenient to do so. So when it comes to quality, the group that already has F&B experience, we're definitely not worried at all. They come in with so much experience. In fact, we take it upon ourselves to learn from this group of people who have a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. And, we're not in a position to tell them, like, hey, you should do this, you should do that. And that's not our company culture. We definitely try to tell our teammates and ourselves that our home cooks and home bakers, even if they don't have F&B experience, they know what they want to cook, and they know that they're coming with, the story behind your food. And let's say, for example, if you're just a stay-at-home parent, you say like, "Oh, I'm cooking my ancestors' recipe, and I don't want to give away this recipe, but I want to share this dish with customers." So it is our job to listen to our home cooks and home bakers.
Yep. Okay. Leanne, I know this is very interesting topic and very interesting business to be in right now. But that's all the time we have for this morning. I promise we're gonna find some time to discuss further about your business, and good luck for your business as well. Leanne Tan, yang merupakan pengasas kepada Hawkr. Kita akan berhenti rehat seketika. Kita akan kembali selepas ini.